car factory, let's talk about it. So I have done a few photo shoots with cars, not too many, not as many as I'd like, but I'd like to do more. So car factory, I know I have some car photos on my Instagram, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll also see some more cars. And so let's talk about what happened during those shoots and like what we were shooting for. So I've done a couple different shoots. So probably like the first, well, some of the ones with the G-Wagon, those were set up by Ethan. And so he's got the hookup on that. He was doing a video, he was doing a lot of filmmaking for that. Other ones included getting some Lambos that was during a car meet, also invited by Ethan. A lot of these I've been invited by Ethan. And then eventually, I think this year I did one with a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I just reached out to them and I was wondering if they wanted to have some photos or whatever, and we went through it that way. But I've also been asked quite a bit to do car photos for different people, and I don't do them too much, but I've definitely have like learned more about car photography and what you want to like look for, what you want to see. So I'll kind of go over that in this video. So outreach. So as far as like getting these cars and finding people who want to get their cars photographed, there's a lot of communities on Facebook, and that's how I found some people that are into car photography, do car photography. And so I go on Facebook, there's like the car meets, the car shows, and most times those car meets are pretty cool. However, if you can get in contact with those, like the owners of the car, that's even better than like going to those car meets and taking the pictures like in a lot with all the other cars. I've done that as well, with some pretty neat photos, but it'd be nice to do somewhere else as well. So what they say for as far as the other thing is with car photography, sometimes I've just done stuff on the street where I see a cool car and I ask the person, hey, can we shoot for a few minutes, or can we shoot right now? Other times it's been like, can we shoot in a few minutes, or can we go over here and take some photos? And most times people are willing unless they're really busy. So usually people are just like, yeah, sure. And then I give them my contact and I send them the photos. As far as getting clients, I would say, or people to like pay you, I've also done that as well, and that one's also really fun, but there's usually a purpose behind it. So recently I did one with Turo, a rental car company, and we just went through what Turo is looking for car photographers, and so I just went by that and put my own style into it. So let's talk about gear real quick. So the gear that I used on my most previous shoots were a Canon EOS RP mirrorless camera, the Canon 24-105 f4 lens. I believe I used a 50mm lens, and then I've also been using the 150-600mm lens as well. And those actually give like a really big range and abilities that I can use to create awesome photos. So a lot of times, a lot of car photographers use wide angle lenses. So that's going to be your like 16, 15, 14 to 24 zoom lenses. Another popular one is the 24 pancake lens, and that's pretty popular in car photography. Something else as far as gear that you want is probably a tripod, so that you can get the same shots multiple times. And that's just stabilizing stuff. If it's cloudy, then it's going to be dark. If it's sunny, you don't have to worry as much. But when you are hand holding, you will constantly be moving around and shifting your angles, so it's easier to get your settings right if you have it on a tripod. But sometimes I don't even use a tripod, so there's that. But the other thing is, you don't need a Canon camera to take awesome photos. You can use something like, you don't need a Canon camera to take awesome awesome photos, you can use something like a Sony or a Nikon, and those will do amazing as well. You just want to make sure there's not really too much you want to make sure with, like, any camera will get the job done. It's mainly that lens that you want that will change how it looks. Another thing that I wanted to go over as I was like reading about car photography and what I've like learned through the years is the settings that you want to use. So settings are always a weird topic in these photo videos because, you know, people always say, like, there's not really a given. It really depends on like the environment, what you're shooting, what you want it to look like. So I would say there's like maybe 2 elements to it that are the most important. So like the actual exposure, if it's bright or dark, and then like the artistic side of it. So for me personally, I would say I use a lot of the artistic side of it, just because I know I can edit when I come back to Lightroom or Photoshop, and those are the softwares that I use. But as far as the settings go, I would make sure to use a high aperture number. So high aperture number means that your aperture is smaller, and so that will like bring in less light, but the light coming in is a lot sharper than it otherwise would be, and it's able to extract like the details from the car and get them onto your camera. So that's how you don't lose focus, that's how you don't lose background focus, that's how you don't lose foreground focus, and you can just like have a nice, I don't want to say kind of flat image where there's no depth to it, but you get more detail to it, and you get like the granularity of the car. Another thing that I would recommend is bringing interior lighting. Sometimes the interior can be really dark, so I would also bring interior lighting, whether that just be like, well, I don't want to say flashlight, but something to brighten things up. Okay, before we go into like scouting locations, I usually do that at the front half, but we'll do it in the back half. I want to go into editing. So editing is so important for me, but I know a lot of people also don't edit as well. But currently I use Lightroom and Photoshop in combination. I would say with automobile photography or car photography, I almost always use the combination of the two. So it's different from portraits where I can edit stuff in Lightroom for the most part, and different than sunsets and whatever. With automobile photography, I usually like to go in and spot like different places or places where I can see myself, so that I'm like removed from the entire scene. And also if there's like any imperfections in the background, I like changing those as well. Okay, so locations. Usually I'm obsessed with locations. I always talk about locations. I made a separate video on how to do a photo shoot. There's more information on that video. But as far as location goes, you want to look for like parking garages, open fields, roads, open roads, really like empty roads, forest areas. You know, when you're doing car photography, think about where this car is going. Is it going to be in the city? Is it going to be like out in like the terrain? Think about those different things, and then have that setting. You can also combine them to have more like an exotic feeling to it, but that would be like more the artistic side of choosing locations. You can also just find places around you that would look cool, but I would recommend places that don't have really busy backgrounds, just because it's going to pull away from the focus of the car. So I would say I make around $200 to $300 doing one of these car photo shoots, and that's just being completely open. I know some photographers charge a lot more, like maybe $500, and I don't necessarily have the setup that they do, and I'm not specialized in car photography. It sure is a fun one to do for me, especially like even editing them is super fun, just because I don't do a lot of them. But that's one way that I charge. It's just like a full out $250 or $300. There are some photographers that do per photo for licensing, and I've done that before as well. But yeah, so those are the two different ways that we get